Lyra stood on the cold metal floor of the Rydell 9 spaceport, holding her travel bag with both hands. Her fingers were shaking, but she tried to keep her face calm. Many people walked past her, humans, aliens, merchants, workers, but no one looked at her for more than a second. She had come to this planet with hope, and that hope had fallen apart in less than an hour. She had signed up as a mail-order bride because her home moon was poor. Her family could not afford basic things. The program promised safety, a home, and a husband who needed companionship on faraway planets. She thought she would finally have a place where she belonged. But the man who had ordered her, a well-known ranch owner, had taken one look at her and shaken his head. "Not what I expected," he had said in a cold voice. "Too curvy. Won't handle the work here. Send her back." He didn't even speak to her directly. He turned and walked away like she was nothing. Now she waited in a small corner of the port where rejected brides were told to stand. She was not the first. Many women had been returned before, but she felt like she was the only one in the entire galaxy at that moment. She tried not to cry. She told herself she should be strong. She had survived hard winters, long days without food, and storms on her home moon. She could survive this too, but the feeling inside her chest was heavy, like a stone. A transport vehicle stopped near the supply depot across the hall. 4 men unloaded large crates. One of them worked alone, separating boxes and checking labels. He wore dusty boots, a faded jacket, and a wide-brimmed hat to shield himself from the harsh sun of Rydell 9. He seemed quiet, calm, and focused on his work. While the other men talked loudly, he simply lifted the next box and placed it where it needed to go. His name was Evan Hale, though Lyra didn't know that yet. Evan finished loading the last crate onto his vehicle. When he turned to walk back to the office, his eyes drifted across the hall and stopped on Lyra. She didn't see him at first. She was staring at the floor, her shoulders slightly lowered. Evan was not the kind of man who stared at strangers, but something about her expression made him pause. She looked lost, like a traveler who had arrived at the wrong world. He noticed how tightly she gripped her bag and how her eyes looked tired rather than weak. He stepped closer to the nearest port officer and lowered his voice. "Who is she?" he asked. The officer sighed. "Mail order bride, rejected. Happens all the time. What happens to her now? She waits. We reassign her if someone else needs a bride. Otherwise, she gets sent off-world again." Evan glanced back at her. She looked like she didn't want to be seen. She was clearly trying to be brave, but the sadness was visible anyway. "Why was she rejected?" Evan asked quietly. The officer shrugged. "The buyer said she was too curvy for ranch labor. Said she wouldn't fit the lifestyle here." Evan frowned. Many people on Rydell 9 valued appearances more than real strength, but he had lived alone on his ranch long enough to know that appearances meant nothing compared to spirit, patience, and heart. He walked closer to Lyra. She noticed Boots stopping near her and lifted her eyes slowly. She expected another officer telling her to move aside. Instead, she saw a young human man with calm brown eyes. He wasn't smiling, but he didn't look harsh either. His expression was quiet, gentle, almost curious. "Are you waiting for someone?" Evan asked. His voice was soft and steady. Lyra swallowed before answering. "No, I was returned." She said the last word quietly, as if it was something heavy. Evan nodded slowly, not judging. "Do you have anywhere to go now?" She shook her head once. "Do you want to stay on the planet?" he asked. Lyra hesitated more this time. She didn't know what to say. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want to be unwanted again. But she also didn't want to go back to the cold, empty home she had left. "I went through so much to come here," she said softly. "But I don't know if I belong anywhere." Evan listened carefully. Then he said, "I have a ranch. It's quiet. Not big like the others. I work alone. If you need a place to stay, you can come with me. You don't have to decide about anything now, but you don't deserve to stand here alone." Lyra stared at him, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "You don't know me," she whispered. "I don't," Evan agreed, "but I can see you're trying your best to stay strong. That's enough for me to offer help." Lyra looked down at her feet. No one had ever spoken to her with that kind of gentle honesty before. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Evan said. "If you want to come, I'll take you. No expectations, just a safe place." Lyra took a long breath. She didn't know what future waited for her, but she knew she couldn't stay here. "I will come," she said finally. Evan nodded once, as if that settled everything. He helped her carry her bag to his transport vehicle. He didn't rush her. He didn't stare at her like others did. He simply made space for her to sit and checked that she was comfortable before driving away from the port. The road to Evan's ranch stretched across wide-open land. The sky of Rydell 9 was a pale orange color in the late afternoon, and long shadows covered the dry fields. Lyra watched everything from the window. The land looked harsh, but also peaceful in a strange way. "You've never been on a ranch before?" Evan asked. "No," she said. "My home moon was small and green. Very different from this." "You'll get used to Rydell 9, Evan said. "It's tough but honest." Lyra glanced at him. "You live alone?" He nodded. "My parents passed away years ago. My brothers moved to the city for other work. I stayed." "Is it not lonely?" she asked. "Sometimes," Evan admitted. "But the animals keep me busy, and peaceful places don't bother me." His voice was simple, without sadness. Just truth. When they arrived at the ranch, Lyra stepped out and looked around. The house was small but well kept. Behind it were fenced fields and large shelters for the animals Evan raised. Massive herbivores with wide horns, gentle eyes and slow movements. One of them approached the fence when Evan walked by. He placed a hand on its head. "This is Old Finn," Evan said. "He's the leader of the herd. He likes meeting new people." Lyra stepped closer slowly. Old Finn sniffed her hand, then pressed his large head against her palm. She smiled softly. It was the first real smile she had shown that day. "He likes you," Evan said. "That is surprising," she replied. "Animals usually don't come close to me." "He sees your calmness," Evan said. "Animals trust that." Lyra didn't know what to say. Most people described her appearance first and her personality only if they had time. Evan didn't do that. He saw things differently. Inside the house, Evan showed her the small guest room. It had a bed, a window, and a clean blanket. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said. "No rush, no pressure." "Thank you," Lyra said. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay anything," he said. "If you want to help on the ranch, you can. If you want to rest first, that's fine too." Lyra looked around the room. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. "I want to help," she said quietly. "I have nothing else to offer." Evan shook his head softly. "You don't owe me work, but if you want to learn, I'll teach you." The next morning, she woke early and found Evan already feeding the herd. She joined him, and he explained how the animals behaved, what they ate, and how to calm them when they were frightened. Lyra listened carefully. She worked slowly at first, afraid of making mistakes, but Evan never scolded her. He corrected her gently, praised her when she improved, and treated her like a real partner. As days passed, she grew more confident. She discovered she could lift heavier tools than she expected. She learned how to open and close the large wooden gates. She learned how to read the signs of a creature preparing to bolt or panic. Evan watched her progress with quiet respect. He never said she was too weak or too fragile. He never judged her shape or size. He valued her patience, her careful steps, her quiet strength. One evening, as they finished storing feed for the night, a distant roar echoed across the fields. Lyra froze. Evan looked toward the horizon. "Wild creatures," he said. "They're getting closer to the herds this season." "Are they dangerous?" Lyra asked. "Sometimes," Evan said. "But we'll handle it." Lyra noticed his hand was tight on the gate lock. He wasn't afraid, but he was preparing. "Can I help?" she asked. Evan looked at her calmly. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said. "I want to help protect this place." Evan nodded. "Then stay close to me. Tonight might be difficult." The sun dipped behind the hills. Shadows grew long. The wild creatures moved in the dark, and the ranch waited. For the first time since she arrived on Rydell 9, Lyra stood not as a rejected bride, but as someone who mattered, someone who was needed. And as the night approached, she felt something new inside her, a small spark of courage. The night on Rydell 9 always came fast. One moment the sky was orange, the next everything was quiet and dark. Lyra stood beside Evan near the main gate of the ranch. The sounds of the wild creatures echoed in the distance, low growls, sharp cries, and the quick movement of something large running across dry ground. Lyra held a lantern in her hand. The light was soft but steady. Evan checked the locks, then looked toward the herd. The animals sensed danger. Their large bodies shifted nervously, and old Finn let out a deep warning sound. "They're closer than usual," Evan said quietly. Lyra nodded. She could feel it, too, a strange pressure in the air, heavy and tense, like the land was holding its breath. "What do they want?" she asked. "They come for the smaller herd animals," Evan said, "or sometimes they just attack because they're hungry or afraid." "Will they come near the house?" Lyra asked. "Not unless they smell something they want, but we need to keep them away from the fences." Lyra watched him pick up a long staff used to scare creatures off. He handed her a shorter one. "If they get too close, hit the ground. The sound usually pushes them back." Lyra held the staff tightly. She felt her heartbeat, fast but steady. She had never fought anything before, but she also knew she could not hide behind the walls. Evan worked hard every day, and he had opened his home to her. She could not let him stand alone tonight. Evan glanced at her, his eyes calm but serious. "Stay near me," he said. "If anything happens, we move together." Lyra nodded. The fear inside her did not disappear, but something else grew stronger, a need to protect this place, this ranch, and the quiet human who had shown her kindness when no one else did. The growls grew louder. A group of wild creatures stepped out from the shadows near the fence. Their bodies were low to the ground, with long legs and glowing eyes that reflected the lantern light. They were not huge, but they were fast and dangerous. Lyra counted at least 6. Evan moved forward. "Stay behind me," he whispered. But one of the creatures rushed toward the fence, trying to push through the wooden rails. Old Finn stomped the ground, calling the herd to move back. Lyra ran toward the fence. She hit the ground with her staff. The sharp sound echoed across the field. The creature stopped, startled. She hit the ground again, harder this time. The creature backed away a little, confused. Evan looked at her with surprise, but also respect. She didn't freeze, and she didn't run. She took action. 2 more creatures came from the left side. Evan moved quickly, hitting the ground with his larger staff and shouting toward them. They retreated, but only for a moment. The wild creatures circled the ranch like they were testing its strength. Lyra and Evan spent hours moving from one part of the fence to another. The herd stayed close together behind old Finn. Lyra found herself standing between the creatures and the herd more than once, her heart beat loud in her ears, but even in fear, she stayed steady. She kept hitting the ground with her staff, using the sound to push the creatures back. Slowly, the night grew deeper. The creatures began to lose interest. Their growls faded. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness. Lyra and Evan stood in silence. The lantern light flickered as the wind brushed past them. "That was a long night," Evan said. Lyra let out a breath she had been holding. "Are they gone?" "For tonight," he said. "They might return tomorrow or the next night." She looked at the fence. "We need stronger gates." Evan raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking like a rancher already." Lyra smiled softly. "Maybe. I want to help make this place safe." Evan nodded. "You helped a lot tonight? More than you know?" They walked back to the house. Lyra felt tired, but proud. She had been rejected by one man because of her appearance, yet tonight she had proven she was strong, capable, and brave. The next morning, the neighboring ranchers came to check if Evan had any damage. They were surprised to see Lyra standing beside him, confident and steady. Some whispered to each other. Some raised eyebrows. Others tried to offer advice, but mostly they were curious. One rancher approached Evan privately. "That the bride who was sent back?" Evan kept his voice calm. "Her name is Lyra." "And she stayed with you?" "She's helping here," Evan said, "and doing a good job." The rancher looked unsure. "You sure you want that trouble? People will talk." Evan stopped stacking supplies and looked the man straight in the eyes. "Let them talk." The rancher didn't push further. He nodded and walked away. Lyra saw the exchange. When the ranchers left, she approached Evan slowly. "Did I cause problems for you?" "Not at all," he said. "People talk because they don't know you, and they don't know what you can do." "And you do?" she asked softly. Evan nodded once. "I saw it last night. You were braver than most." Lyra didn't know what to say. She looked down at her hands. He didn't speak about her like she was something to be judged or returned. He saw her worth, something she had never experienced. Over the next few days, Lyra learned more about the ranch. She worked beside Evan from sunrise to sunset. She carried heavy feed bags, fixed broken fences, and calmed the herd during windy storms. Evan taught her carefully, never raising his voice or showing frustration. Lyra learned quickly, her movements growing more confident each day. One afternoon, as they repaired a wooden gate, a loud alarm sound came from the settlement miles away. Evan looked toward the hills. "Something's wrong." A messenger vehicle arrived minutes later. The driver shouted, "Wild creatures attacked the East Ranch, harder than usual. We need help." Evan stepped forward immediately. "How many?" "Too many for one ranch to handle." Evan grabbed his tools. "I'll go." Lyra stepped up beside him. "I will go too." Evan turned to her. "It could be dangerous." "I know," she said calmly, "but they need help, and you shouldn't go alone." Evan studied her for a moment. Then he nodded. "All right, stay close to me." They rode to the East Ranch together. When they arrived, they found chaos. The herd there was frightened, pushing against the fences. The ranchers looked exhausted as wild creatures circled the field, growling and pacing. Evan and Lyra ran to help. Evan used his staff to push the creatures back. Lyra moved quickly, closing open gates and calming the animals. She shouted instructions to others when she saw what needed to be done. No one questioned her. They were too busy trying to survive. But the creatures didn't retreat this time. They kept coming, faster and stronger than before. Lyra felt her mind racing. She looked at an old piece of machinery sitting near the barn, a sound wave generator used to call herds from long distances. It was broken, but not completely useless. "Evan!" she shouted. "Help me move that." He saw where she pointed and understood immediately. Together, they pulled the heavy machine into position. Evan worked on the wires while Lyra held off the creatures with the other ranchers. She hit the ground again and again, pushing them back with every strike. Finally, Evan shouted, "It's ready!" Lyra nodded. "Turn it on!" Evan activated the machine. A powerful, low sound burst into the air, not painful but overwhelming to the wild creatures. They shrieked and backed away immediately. The sound created a wide, invisible wall, forcing them to retreat. Slowly they fled into the hills, leaving the ranch alone at last. The ranchers cheered in relief. Some ran to thank Evan and Lyra. Others looked at them with new respect. The ranch owner, an older man with tired eyes, approached Lyra. "You saved us," he said. "Thank you." Lyra shook her head. "We all helped. No one person could do it alone." Evan smiled at her words. On the way back to their ranch, the wind was soft and the sky warm. Lyra looked at the fields stretching far into the distance. She felt something rise inside her, a quiet peace she had never felt before. "Evan," she said softly, "why did you help me at the port that day?" He kept his eyes on the road. "You looked like someone who deserved better than what she got." Lyra felt her throat tighten. "I didn't think anyone would give me a second chance." "You deserved one," he said. "And now, I'm glad you stayed." Lyra looked at him, her voice gentle. "I'm glad too." The ranch came into view. The herd was calm. Old Finn stood near the fence, watching them return as if he knew they had done something important. Evan helped Lyra down from the transport. The air was cool, and the sky was slowly turning golden. "You can stay here as long as you want," Evan said quietly. "Not because you owe me anything, but because you are part of this place now." Lyra felt her heart warm. "I would like to stay," she said. "Not as a guest, but as someone who belongs." Evan nodded. "Then stay, as my partner on this ranch." Lyra smiled, a real, full smile. "Yes, I will." And from that day forward, she was no longer the woman who had been returned. She was Lyra, the brave woman who stood her ground, protected the herd, saved 2 ranches, and found a home with a quiet human who saw her worth when no one else did. A spark that would grow brighter very soon.